Hi, I'm Justin.
Also, I hate the way my voice sounds, so if you can do whatever Photoshop does to voices, make me sound awesome.
And this is my lovely friend,
The beauty in the eyes of the beholder, and it's just about getting into the seat of being the beholder.
Hayley.
I don't think you have to be particularly perceptive. I just think you have to look up.
This podcast is mostly just her telling me stories.
If you expose yourself to the possibility that this might be really awkward, there can be something just really cool on the other side of it.
She thinks that her life and way of looking at things are
Oh, I was kind of waiting on you. I thought you were getting your stuff ready. You're waiting on me?
pretty normal.
You got to edit out all the misinformation about the Amish.
Maybe you can relate.
I would like a chance to re-sing the Amish Paradise.
If you want lighthearted stories
All right, you want to talk about goats?
and stream of consciousness,
I just woke up and needed some friends, and so I bought them.
then you're gonna like the Sunny Side Up podcast.
Sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up.
So, if you're at all like me, you may feel that you're living in a world that can be a bit overwhelming and confusing at times. I'm also a huge fan of podcasts, documentaries, docudramas, stories, and of just information in general. Between all of that and the social media and news, sometimes our brains can feel like they're on overload. Hayley and I hope that this podcast can be something of an antidote to all of that. Like little jello shots of joy and distraction. None of it is too serious or really too informative. Mostly it's just two friends who have conversational chemistry talking about whatever enters the minds of relatively ADHD people. We hope you enjoy.
We were starting with the Mensa lady who was doing water testing. I don't know if there was more people at the Mensa table that are deserving honorable mention.
a whole table full and everybody with their own hobbies and experiences. I didn't speak up much because I was the newest face at the table, and I haven't been back mostly just because it's out of town, and I started doing some other things where my schedule just didn't really enable me to drive that far for a dinner by myself. But that does kind of make you, Mississippi Waterways, I don't think there was a particular reason why they were testing. They weren't suspicious of this particular river or that one.
Yeah.
They were just kind of spot testing, and she's like,
Smart.
by the way, I'd be a little careful about this one. That's probably true of most waterways. I don't think that we necessarily have more runoff than any other place.
No, I would imagine.
I'm used to the Florida, you and I both, with its crystal clear waters. Mississippi's are so muddy, they all look dirty, but it's just because they have muddy bottoms. And then you get to Florida where they're clean and clear and they're beautiful. But
Well, that's only right near the spring. But I remember the
those
Swanee
are the only
River.
ones we've ever swum.
Okay.
Swam?
Swam in? Yeah, I don't know. I think.
It's the only ones we ever kayaked in.
I'd change it. No, but I remember the Swanee River was very brown, and somebody was telling me it was the tannic acid from the roots or something. But anyway,
Yeah.
Right, so there's plenty of very muddy creeks.
Not quite as clean.
Right, but Florida, to give it its props, does have, I think the statistic is it has the highest concentration of freshwater springs of anywhere, maybe in the world, possibly. But yeah.
Goodness.
That is a cool, my personal opinion on Florida is it's mostly unless you live on the beach, I don't know why anybody would bother to live in the middle central part of Florida. It's there's no real redeeming features for me personally.
You can insure your property. I don't think you can insure it if you're waterfront, if you're beachfront.
Oh no, you totally can insure it.
I thought they canceled after the hurricanes. I thought there was an issue with placing certain insurances on some waterfront properties.
Maybe they finally got smart. That's a whole other rabbit trail that we could chase of basically for the longest time, insurance companies by themselves would either have to charge you an amount of money that would make it prohibitive, or they just wouldn't do it because the risk is too great. So the United States government stepped in and subsidized Florida to keep people buying and keep those expensive homes thriving. They stepped in and said, "Oh, we'll federally insure it past a certain point," which then again took the free market actual risk assessment out of the equation. And of course, the insurance company's like, yeah, sure, we'll totally insure your $20 million home that's going to absolutely get smashed.
Be subject to the next Atlantic hurricane season. Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe the United States government has decided. But if that's really true, though, then the reason I would hesitate to believe that's true is they're still building like crazy along the coast, and nobody would do that if they couldn't insure it.
That's true. And this was a conversation with someone who was involved in real estate, but not necessarily development. It was more land work. And this was in 2008 or 2009. So it may have been a little more limited in scope. Shouldn't have spoken that into the airways without knowing more about
that's what
the specifics. But we'll look it up later and see exactly what riders on the insurance policies were stricken.
I feel like part of the point of this show is for people
to raise general awareness so that you can go look it up yourself.
No, this is what my part of my hope is that people will get a laugh. People will be amused during a 10-minute boring bit of their drive. But also, let's face it, maybe the people listening will be like, wow, I'm smarter than Hayley and Justin are, because every time they stumble on these things or they misquote quote unquote facts, we know the answer every time. And so maybe that's what we're doing, is we're giving people a boost to their ego or their self-confidence, I'm actually a pretty bright person. So I feel like we're doing our bit.
Note to the listener, you are.
Right, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. But okay, so storms and wind and rain damage is not the greatest danger of Florida waterways. The Atlantic hurricane season is not the biggest threat. It might be, did you ever swim or visit or kayak on the river at Silver Springs?
No, but I did the glass bottom boats, which
even better. Did you get to see any manatees?
Yeah, I did get to see manatees.
Oh my God,
manatees are one of God's most precious creatures.
Thank you.
Yes, they are so chubby and so sweet. Won't hurt you.
Just giant floating potatoes.
They're just adorable. Maybe a little dumb. I don't know. They get caught in the propellers, but I think that's one of those cases of humans need to just be very aware of.
Yeah, well, they're ginormous with tiny little fins. They just can't swim fast. I wouldn't necessarily say it's an intelligence strike so much as it is they lack the resources to swim fast. So
and I guess they really don't have
all it is.
a
They're
natural
friendly
predator, so they can just putz around and eat grass, the seagrass.
So
anyways, they're fantastic. They're beautiful, sweet creatures.
I love that you got to see them. I've been hoping to get around during manatee season, and I just haven't. We were swimming in Pensacola, and I felt that something got near. The hair on my arm stood up, and I just kind of freaked out for no reason. Did I tell you about this already?
No.
And I made the girls get out of the water, and I was like, "There's just get out of the water."
Wow.
And we get out, and I calmed down. We swam a little bit more, and then we left. And as we're leaving, the people nearest to us, who were probably 75 yards away, were like, "Hey, did y'all see those manatees?" And we're like, "Excuse me?" And they're like, "Yeah, right out where y'all were swimming, there were some manatees." They came up to us, and he showed me videos on his phone of the manatees just swimming right up to them and hanging out for a few minutes. And I was devastated, because that was a dream that I had for myself, to swim
with the manatees.
With manatees. And there's only one river where it's actually legal and licensed for you to swim with manatees.
Oh, wow.
But here they were in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And that was my chance, and instead of embracing it, my fear
though.
reactors went off. And I'll say, if I had been bumped by a manatee in the water, I wouldn't have asked what that was before. I would have just died in the water. So
right.
I guess it worked out for the best.
It probably did.
But the rest of that river, did you see the monkeys?
Oh yes, on the on the glass bottom boat when we would do the tour, which. Gosh, I wonder. Do you think Silver Springs is it still operating?
We just kayaked 2 or 3 years ago.
No. The whole Silver Springs, because remember there was
yes.
Okay, because I remember a dude with a rattlesnake, and he would put a balloon in front of the rattlesnake, and then the rattlesnake would pop the balloon.
Good trick.
Yeah, and then there was a dude who would take a little alligator out and stick his chin on the open mouth, and
Wait,
you know that
stick.
Like you open the
Alligator's open mouth and
right. So you basically sit on its back.
Oh, a large alligator. I was thinking of like this small, like pocket size.
It was like a medium size. I feel like put it this way. With the rattlesnake, if the guy had gotten bitten, I know they would have anti-venom or whatever, but like that, there was some real risk there that something bad could happen. I remember the gator this dude, quote unquote, wrestled in the arena there at Silver Springs. I remember thinking, okay, like if it clamps down on his arm, like there's going to be a lot of blood. It's not going to feel good. But he could pick the whole stinking alligator up. Like this wasn't one of those like 12-foot long, 500-pound, 600-pound like behemoths. This was a manageable gator.
I think the problem with the alligators is the way they can lock their jaws shut. So the pounds of pressure whenever they compress would more so. But I hope they still do those things.
And we went on that boat tour, which is where we got to see the monkeys.
Okay, so when you asked if it's still operational, the boat tour is. Because I just got videos from friends who did that last week.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, okay, I'm glad to know someone else that's been to that river because we went and we haven't been able to like discuss it with anybody else because we didn't know anyone else who had been there. We just kayaked.
Okay.
So the boats weren't running whenever we were there, but the monkeys were everywhere. So Silver Springs is where they filmed some of the earlier Tarzan films.
That's right. They were very proud of that, by the way.
Yeah, and at some point, a man decided that as the Florida, like, mom and pop tourism industry started to wane in the shadow of Disney and Universal and these other things, he was trying to bring tourists to the area, so he reintroduced the rhesus monkeys to the area to try to, I guess, play off of we're the Tarzan place. Yeah. And they took off, and they multiplied, and they spread, which was cool. We were like, this is excellent. And then we get home and read about it, and in fact, it is not excellent. They can carry hepatitis.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's transmissible through saliva. So being bit by a monkey.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and they were biting people. They were biting so many people and running through town and creating such a problem that as recently as the 90s, I didn't look to see if there were more current articles, but they were allowing citizens to like go out and
do monkey hunting?
Hunt monkeys. Yes, to kind of get the population back under control.
Wow.
Because you're being bit by, not rabid monkeys, but it's just fun to say, like, hepatitis spreading, biting monkeys. How exciting. Bring the family. Like, what a tourist boon.
Look at what happened to Johnny. This is like...
like, Florida's got its own allure. Every city, every county.
Well, that reminds me of, like, we've probably talked about this before, but... You know, the invasive species in the Everglades are like these giant reticulating pythons that grow like to enormous length, have no natural predators, and are literally because Florida is so special, I say that with air quotes, that I guess there's an enormous amount of people who like to keep exotic animals like Joe Exotic that all live there. And then after a while, like their python probably eats a child or something, like, dang it. And then they don't know what to do with it, so they dropped it off in the Everglades. So, like, through this, like, just because a bunch of people that have exotic animals happen to live in Florida, and then those exotic animals eventually get too big, maybe eat a family member or start scaring the family members, they decided to let them go in the Everglades. And now those snakes are eating, like, all kinds of, like, fragile, actually, like, rare wildlife. And now you can go hunt giant
pythons,
reticulating pythons, because so monkeys and pythons introduced to Florida were not the best thing ever introduced to them.
Like, among other things, Dave Barry has a cute book about traveling through the state of Florida where he was trying to hit all of these like offbeat tourist locations, and he tells. Well, he's amusing anyway, but
Dave's great.
The combination of both of them.
That's fantastic. Yeah, definitely not what you want on your family trip. It's like, hey, kids, look what the monkey did to mom.
Which it's all about the story in hindsight, I guess, if you can live to tell the tale after the vacation.
That's right. Yeah.
The things you do as families.
Yeah.
Hello, lovely friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And it would mean the world if you would tell other people about this podcast and maybe even spam your social media accounts with just how much you're enjoying it. If you are, of course. Also, commenting and rating us on whatever platform you're downloading or streaming from is incredibly helpful to a little startup podcast like this one. On the other hand, if you are dissatisfied with your listening experience, please leave all of that hate on someone else's podcast. Just maybe to confuse them a little bit, right? But most of all, we hope you keep looking up and looking for the sunny side of life.